In the previous chapter, we left Luke still feeling pretty frustrated about how his dad came home and yelled at him. His mom tried to comfort him like she usually does, and he was not ready. So let's see if there are other feelings that come out at dinner. Chapter 10. When Luke went down to supper, he saw that Mother had set his 2 loaves of bread out on the china plate she used for holidays and special occasions. She was showing off the bread the way she used to tape up the crooked drawings Matthew and Mark brought home from school when they were little. But something had gone wrong. Maybe Luke hadn't used enough yeast or needed the dough too much or too little, and the loaves had turned out flat. They looked lopsided and pathetic in the center of the table. Have you guys tried to make bread from scratch ever?
Yeah.
It is super hard. There are so many things that can go wrong. And it seems like something probably did for Luke.
Whoa.
He's 12. Luke wished Mother had just thrown them away. It's cold out now. Nobody'd notice if you pulled the shades. Why can't I sit at the table with all of you? He asked when he reached the bottom of the stairs. Oh, Luke, Mother started. Someone might see your shadow through the shade, Dad said. They wouldn't know it was mine, Luke said. But there'd be 5. Someone might get suspicious, Mother said patiently. Luke, we're just trying to protect you. How about a big slice of your bread? There's cold beef and canned beans, too. Resignedly, Luke sat down on the stairs. Matthew asked about the auction Dad had gone to. I drove all the way for nothing, Dad said disgustedly. I waited 4 hours for the tractors to come up, and then I couldn't even afford the first bid. At least you got home in time to fix the back fence before dark, Mother said, cutting the bread. And yell at me, Luke thought bitterly. What was wrong with him? Nothing had changed. Except maybe he'd seen a face that maybe belonged to someone like him. Okay, Luke asked what was wrong with him. Is something different about him?
No. Yes.
Yeah, he is a little bit sassy tonight. Comes downstairs. Why do I gotta sit on the stairs? And he kind of argued about it. Is that how he used to handle it?
No.
He was all calm and patient. Didn't ask for butter on his bread because that would be inconvenient. Didn't argue. Saved his mom's feelings. And now he's like, not. No, well, but that's a good question. So is there a reason that you can think of that makes actual sense?
Yeah, but he's tall.
Do you think it's harder to stay hidden and sit on the stairs when he just had his taste of freedom today?
Yeah.
He got to run around and he got a taste for what that could be like. Maybe seeing the other kid has something to do with it. If that was another kid, it might be like consuming his brain, and so he's just not as calm and patient as normal. Oh, something's different. Matthew and Mark suddenly noticed the bread Mother was doling out. What's wrong with that? Mark asked. I'm sure it tastes fine, Mother said. It's Luke's first try. Luke muttered, and my last, too softly for anyone to hear. There were advantages to sitting on the other side of the room from everyone else. Luke made bread? Mark said incredulously. Yuck! Yeah, and I put special poison in the one of the loaves that only affects 14-year-olds, Luke said. He pantomimed death, clutching his hands around his own neck, letting his tongue hang out of his mouth and lolling his head to the side. If you're nice to me, I'll tell you which loaf is safe. That shut Mark up, but earned Luke a frown from Mother. Luke felt strange about the joke anyway. Of course he'd never poison anyone, but if something happened to Matthew or Mark, would Luke have to hide anymore? Would he become the public second son, free to go to town and to school and everywhere else that Matthew and Mark went? Could his parents find some way to explain a new child already 12 years old? It wasn't something Luke could ask. He felt guilty just thinking about it. I mean, that's a question you guys had, immediately. Well, what if one of them died? Could Luke take their place? I don't know how often Luke thinks about this, but he's thinking of it now. Mark was making a big ceremony out of bringing the bread up to his mouth. "I'm not scared of you," he taunted, and took a big bite. He swallowed with great difficulty and pretended to gag. "Water, water, quick!" He gulped down half of his glass and glared at Luke. "Tastes like poison, all right." Luke bit into his bread. It was dry and crumbly and tasteless, not like Mother's at all. And everybody knew it. Even Dad and Mother had pained expressions on their faces as they chewed. Dad finally pushed his slice away. "That's okay, Luke. I'm not sure I'd want any son of mine getting too good at baking anyhow. That's what a man gets married for." I know, gasp, I know. We're just going to speed right by that comment. Matthew and Mark guffawed. "Getting married soon, Luke?" Mark teased. "Sure," Mark said, struggling to sound as devil-may-care as Mark. "But don't think I'd invite you to the wedding." He felt a cold, hard lump in his stomach that wasn't the bread. Of course he'd never get married or do anything. He'd never leave the house. That is a dark, dark thought. True, but dark. Mark switched to teasing Matthew, who evidently did have a girlfriend. Luke watched the rest of his family laughing. "May I be excused?" he asked. Everyone turned to him in surprise. Usually he was the last one to make that request. Mother often begged Matthew and Mark, "Can't you wait and talk to Luke a little bit longer?" "Done already?" Mother asked. "I'm not very hungry," Luke said. Mother gave him a worried look, but nodded anyway. Luke went to his room and climbed onto the stool by the back fence. In the dark, it was easier than ever to see into the houses of the new neighborhood. Their windows were lit up against the night. Some families were eating like his. He could see one set of 4 people around a dining room table and one set of 3. Some families had their curtains or shades drawn, but sometimes the material was thin, and he could still see shadows of the people inside. Only the sports family had all their windows totally blocked, covered by heavy blinds.